Greetings, good afternoon. We'll do it again. Greetings, good afternoon. My name is Chris Saxman with Virginia Free. I'm joined by Bill Coleman, who is running for the Democratic nomination in the 73rd House of Delegates District. Bill, welcome to Virginia Free. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been an IT guy for the past 20, 25 years. I currently work at a Medicare provider as an IT project manager. I'm a graduate of the University of Central Florida, and I got a master's degree from VCU in IT management. I've been in and out of politics for the last 15 years, and hoping to become the nominee for the Democrats in the 73rd District.
Wow, it's a crowded field for the nomination. 4 so far announced candidates.
Yes.
Tell us why you decided to run for public office.
Well, I've had an interest in politics for the last 15, 20 years, and my life had calmed down, and the wife said that I could run for office, which is always important to get your spouse's permission. But I've always thought that the best way to help the most people is to be involved in elected politics, and it's something I've always wanted to do. So.
Well, good for you, and congratulations for getting the hall pass from the missus. That's always important to have spousal support before you have to give spousal support. That's a joke. But looking at your website, it's give us the address.
It's billcolemanfordelegate.com.
billcolemanfordelegate.com, and anyone can contact you through that. Anyone can
Yes,
contact you through that. Okay, good. And you're on Facebook and any other social media platforms?
No.
Okay, good.
After the caucus, maybe.
Well, your primary is very close, isn't it?
It's on the 29th of April.
April 29th. That's an important one to know.
What, 16 days from now?
Wow. And how many locations in the Firehouse primary?
Just one. It's at the Glen Ellen Cultural Arts Center from 10 to 2. They're having an early vote at the Glen Ellen Library on the Monday before that from 6 to 8. So
2 days.
Limited. Yes.
Wow. I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Either did I. And the most interesting thing is they're doing what they call it's called an instant primary. Basically, if you go in and vote, you'll rank the 4 of us from 1 to 4, and then if one person doesn't get 50%, they will take whoever was 4th place, knock them out, take their number 2s, and add them to the people above that, and continue to do so until they get to 50%.
So it's a convention?
No, it's what they call an instant primary or an instant runoff. They do it in Europe a lot.
Wow.
It's so you can pick your preference of who do you like the most and who do you like the least.
Wow. Okay. Well.
Yeah, it's the first time I ever heard of it happening.
So is the first round Monday night then?
No, it's instant. So you'll have the absentee ballot more or less on Monday, and then Saturday you'll have everyone else. And when they're done on Saturday, take everything and put it together and calculate it out then.
Sounds like an Iowa caucus kind of format.
Sort of. It's sort of like that. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, don't want to get too lost in it. Let's talk about you and your candidacy. You've in your IT, healthcare. You mentioned on your website prominently in the issues, your platform, Bill's platform, your interest in healthcare. Talk about healthcare.
Well, the main interest that I have is actually in behavioral and mental health care. Currently in the 73rd District, our largest behavioral health facility has been at what they call Code 100 for the past 5 years off and on. And what that means is there's currently no beds open long term. That means if you go in having an issue, they will treat you and street you as fast as they can because they have no place to be in. The biggest issue that we have as far as mental and behavioral health is our first responders. We need to make sure that they're trained in order to tell the difference between someone who is actually committing a crime and someone who's having an issue, a behavioral mental health issue, they've gone off their meds, whatever the situation is, and not use our penal system as the first line of behavioral health treatment.
Right.
As far as healthcare goes, I am a supporter of expanding Medicaid and Medicare, filling the gap. Where I work, I deal with the lack of providers that we have all the time, and we need to make sure that if we're going to have Medicare and Medicaid providers, that we pay them what we say that we're going to pay them, make sure that we compensate them properly, and that will help bring back the good name of Medicare and Medicaid to providers who may or may not be a little more hesitant because they aren't being fairly compensated for their services.
Okay. Just on the Medicaid expansion has been an issue for several years, as you know, in the Commonwealth. The counter argument from Republicans has been, well, we can go to 100% Medicaid expansion, but we know, or the history of the federal government is to reduce that down, starting at 90% automatically and leaving a funding deficit in several $100 million. What's your response to that?
That's accurate. The federal government will kick in. I don't remember the exact amount for 5 years, and then we'll start to decrease it, and the state picks up the rest. That plan will be exasperated by the fact that the Speaker and the Senate want to go to block grant funding, which will, of course, leave more of the burden on the states.
Okay, you mean the federal Speaker, not the
federal Speaker. Sorry, Speaker Ryan. His plan is to go to a block grant system, which will be different than how we fund Medicare and Medicaid now, which will again exacerbate the problem. The only way to really solve that is through some sort of taxation to make up the gap. Or for better for worse, you probably have to raise a tax on something to make up the gap.
If the federal government goes through Congress, if they go to a block grant program.
The block grant, the states will have to raise revenue one way or the other.
How much do you? I mean, I don't know the answer to this. I'm just asking out of interest. How much do you expect that to be for Virginia?
I have not seen any numbers that have really been steady across several different groups. Everyone, it's all over the place. So the Republicans in the federal House put out one number when they were trying to get their bill passed, and I don't think the Senate even touched it. And then the Congressional Budget Office, it was all over the place.
Okay, so for right now, though, your interest is supporting the Medicaid expansion here in Virginia, right?
I think, yes, we need to make sure that it's expanded because we have way too many, 400,000 people in the gap, and I think there's 4,000 in the 73rd alone. If we don't take the federal money and expand it, we need to come up with something from the state government that will, if not subsidize these people, help them out some way. There has to be an answer.
Let's stay in that realm. What would you suggest?
I actually like the idea of what Romney Care did in Massachusetts. I'm probably one of the only Democrats that you'll ever meet that will say I'm not a huge fan of giant federal agencies that have carte blanche to do whatever. I think that the states have good answers, and I think that we can learn from what other states do, from what Hawaii does, from what Massachusetts does, and from what other states do. So, for example, Maryland was trying to put together, their exchange a couple of years ago, and Kentucky had this fantastic software to do their exchange, and Maryland threw away theirs, found out what Kentucky was doing, took that good idea and basically just took off the name Kentucky and put Maryland on it, and there you go, and it saved them millions of dollars in the long term. We need to look at what other states are doing, and we need to emulate that if it's working. And if it's not working, we need to come up with another idea. But as far as covering it, I'd have to look to see what the options are. The only one that I'm completely familiar with is Romney Care, where it was basically a smaller version of the ACA, or we take the money from the feds. But I'm always open to a third or fourth or fifth idea, as long as it helps the folks in the gap.
Okay, well, fairly well thought out on healthcare. Let's jump over to it's what you do, right? And we probably know more than most. But what I think is reassuring for a lot of folks is that you're willing to consider things that work.
Yeah, I think
And rather than
any
we're going to go
government.
this way or that way and that's it, we've seen a lot of non-compromising candidates. We don't want to go down this road. I know everything, and we don't get things done. And politics is about the art of compromise. So
I am all about, no matter what it is, to try out a pilot program. If any topic, if we
okay,
think that it can make government work for the people better or be more efficient or whatever the end goal is, if we
right,
want to try a pilot project and find out it doesn't work, then at least we tried and we know the answer.
okay.
So,
Well, let's take that thought process and apply it to K through 12 education. Probably a big issue in your district. What are your thoughts on
yes.
K-12 and how can we improve it?
Well, I think we need to start with pre-K. We need to make sure that all the students have a head start, make sure that they're all getting the foundation that they need. Actually, what was really interesting, I was at a meeting at Henrico County at Glen Ellen High School about 2 months ago, and they were talking about changing all of the middle schools in Henrico County to project-based education. So the idea is, and as a project manager, of course, this is completely in my wheelhouse. It would be you and say 10 of your friends, right? And you would have different roles based on whatever the project was, and you'd have an overarching project that would go throughout either the quarter or the semester and would cover all of the different subject matter. And so it would teach you to be more of a critical thinking student, work in groups better, and know how to handle life outside of the classroom. And they're currently have a 3 year, I believe it's a 3 year grant from the Department of Education to flush this out and get their folks trained and up and running. And supposedly in 3 years in Henrico County, that's what they're going to be doing, and then take that to the high school level.
So
But
you would like to study that proposal when it gets finished out in 3 years and see if you can expand it throughout the state?
preferably,
Is that
yes.
what you're,
They're also
is
doing,
that what
from
you're
what I
talking
understand,
about?
they're
Okay.
also doing out in Chesterfield as well.
Okay.
But
This is a
as
middle
far as
school?
it's starting in middle school, and if I remember
Wow.
correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, it will be deployed to the high schools if it works in the middle schools.
Yeah, our kids are in Henrico County schools. I haven't heard of it, but starting anything in middle school is always problematic.
Oh, but as far as other things that have to do with education, I'm a big fan of STEM or STEAM education. I think,
Right, saw that on your
and what that
site.
is, it's science, technology, engineering, and
Right.
mathematics. A lot of people are saying, hey, factory jobs are disappearing. Well, the traditional factory job where you go to a place and you do this one thing over and over again, yes, those are disappearing. But the idea of you can go out of high school and get a $30,000 to $75,000 a year job that without a college education, those jobs really haven't gone away. They've changed.
Right.
So
Right.
so for example, you want to be a programmer or a coder, you don't necessarily need your college education. You need to understand the languages. You need to understand the back end technology, and you can do that with just a few certifications and get that entry level job. And uh, basically, if you want to go to college later, you can. But we are currently only graduating about 100 to 150 students in Henrico County that have the technical prowess to get these STEM jobs, and there's going to be 500,000 STEM jobs coming to the Commonwealth of Virginia in the next 10 years, and we're only graduating 150 students per year in Henrico County, and the bulk of them are either going to Northern Virginia or they'll come here to Central Virginia. We are we have so many folks that we bring in to Central Virginia because we have a knowledge gap in our workforce. We need to
Mm.
be training our current workforce and our future workforce to make up for the jobs that are coming. We need to make sure we diversify our economy and prepare for the needs of these companies that the governor and other people are bringing in to fill with the people we have here.
Okay. Let's jump back if we can. You mentioned
No
pre-K,
problem.
and
Yes.
that it's been a subject that, frankly, Lieutenant Governor Kane, I think, has been talking about expanding pre-K, universal pre-K. Do you support universal pre-K, mandatory pre-K? How early, and how do you pay for
I think that you put it in with well, first off, universal pre-K. Anything that can give all of our children a leg up on anyone else to make our region, to be honest, to make our region that much more attractive to employers and the end result is a good thing. And as far as
but mandatory, would you go mandatory? 4-year-olds have to go to pre-K?
I honestly don't know, and I know you probably don't hear that so much from politicians, but I don't know. I know everyone.
I wish we heard it more. It's more honest.
I want to lean towards yes, because it's it always gives a leg up, but you can't make everybody do everything all the time. I'm sure, and I don't want to, and I wouldn't want to, I would just not want to be used as daycare. I would want it to be a truly beneficial to the children. So that would be my hesitation. I would want to make sure the curriculum is not just daycare. So, and how do you pay for it? Well, you can do one of two ways. You can raise a tax. You can charge a little bit of money for it. I mean, there's 101 different ways to do that, but the devil's always in the details. So,
but you're willing to explore those details without being a devil per se.
Oh yeah. Why? I mean, if there is a program,
but you're open to you said which is very interesting. You're open to whether it being universal and or mandatory, and paying for it either a public or a public-private mix in there to get it done.
Yes, you need to make sure that you're open to all the options, and then find out which one works best for the most people. And that's how government should work. So,
well, let's move on up to what's left. We haven't gotten to higher education. You have an advanced degree from the Virginia Commonwealth University, and start out at Central Florida. Are they the Knights?
Yeah, the Golden. Well, there used to be the Golden Knights when I was there.
They're not the Golden Knights anymore.
They took off the golden part, the shines off the armor.
Okay, just the Knights.
They used to be the Citronauts. So
what?
The Citronauts. So it was a guy who with a George Jetson spacecraft helmet, and then you had a grape and an orange, and it said UCF across the front, and they were the Citronauts.
I like that better.
So do I. But
kitschy. It's kitschy, catch on. Anyway.
Sure.
Let's higher education.
Yes.
Been controversial in the public eye and populist waves of trying to make it more affordable, more accessible, and we've given more autonomy to some of our colleges, universities in the Commonwealth. So, where are you on higher education policy, Virginia?
So that's kind of a three-pronged answer. So cost, one of the main reasons that costs have gone up so much is because you have a decrease in funding from both the federal and state governments for institutes of higher education. And you also have a decrease for local as well. So hence why in Henrico we had to have the bond measure, is because the state was taking away funding, for better or for worse. And so you need to make up that cost somewhere. And the way the universities are doing is they're charging higher tuition. As far as free college goes, or free college per se, I'm not totally sold on that idea. It costs a lot to run many major universities.
It's not free. Someone's got to pay for it.
Free. It always costs, and the costs come from somewhere. It makes a great talking point, and it really does. But when it comes down to the brass tacks, pardon the pun, it doesn't really add up. Because I know plenty of people who have a bachelor's degree in X, Y, and Z, and they're making $32, $35 a year, and their college degree really isn't helping them. So the idea that college is the answer for everybody, and you're going to go into debt up to your eyebrows for 30 years. I mean, my master's degree cost me $35,000 a year, or $35,000, and it's going to cost me, I guess, 25 years to pay it off. I got a really good interest rate though, but and that my graduate degree did help me, but I know of at least 6 people off the top of my head that are working $12, $15 an hour jobs. They have their bachelor's degree, and a good chunk of their paycheck goes to housing, and it goes to their undergrad loans.
Right.
We need to make sure college is affordable. We need to make sure that the universities are spending it wisely. We need to make sure that the state government is putting in their fair share, and everyone is putting in their fair share to make sure that we have an educated populace. But on top of that, we also need to make sure our technical schools are pumping out the types of workers that we need. So, as I stated earlier, you don't necessarily need to go to university to get a job that will get you the 2-car garage house and the 2.5 kids. You need to make sure that the end goal of your personal education matches up with going to university. So I don't know if that answered all your questions, but
no, I think it gives us a look. Issues and candidates and incumbents are all probably, hopefully, works in progress. And what we're trying to do at Virginia Free is develop relationships and deepen our engagement with candidates and elected officials so that the business community understands where their elected officials are, where they look like they're going, so we can hopefully try to better inform and create a dialogue, constructive dialogue, because higher education is an important component to our workforce development in the Commonwealth. How it affects the economy is very, very important. Virginia has an excellent higher education system, but we want to make sure it continues to get better, and also, I think, as you noted, to make improvements where we can in concert with them without taking a too blunt of a force to their to what their current operations are. And it sounds like that's where you are. You brought up wage positions. Yes. Let's talk about minimum wage now. There's been a movement out there to support a $15 an hour minimum wage. Where do you stand on that?
I support that, but the end goal being that I've been hearing about that, and I'm sure you have since as far as you can remember. The minimum wage is just that. It is the least amount you can get for the buying power that will provide. I believe that we should pass either between a $12 and $15 minimum wage and then attach it to CPI and be done with it. If the CPI goes up, then the minimum wage goes up. If the CPI goes down, then the minimum wage goes down. It needs to be, I don't know how it goes where you work, but I get a cost of living increase based on partially calculated by the CPI and what it costs to live here. We need to make sure that whatever conclusion that we come to for what the minimum wage is, we need to make sure that the buying power remains consistent. Don't just get a minimum wage so someone can get a raise. Make sure that it is the starting base for what people earn in a certain area. I'm open to the idea that we have different minimum wages depending on the different areas. If it costs more to live in Northern Virginia or the same exact thing that it costs same amount that it costs to live in Richmond and the surrounding metro area, then maybe it should be different, either higher or lower. And if you're out in Southwest Virginia, it costs less to get the same amount of goods and services, then perhaps it should be lower in Southwest Virginia, and so on and so forth.
But you're open to that.
Do what?
But you're open to having a more of a regional approach and how we would take on a minimum wage scales. And would you support a legislation now that just advanced it to say it's at $7.25 now, say it goes to $8 plus a CPI? You'd be fine with that? You would support that?
I'd rather have it be a little higher. To be honest, I think if you, let's say for argument,
but in the course of the legislative battles, I mean, we all have our preferences.
If you wanted to get, if it went to $8,
in the legislature, you have to have votes, right?
Yes, if it went to $8, I would then attach it to CPI, and that's the base that we're going to run at from now on. So every 2 or 3 years.
I see that as an example, not as a bill that's been considered. It's just like we're trying to understand where Bill Coleman's thought process is.
The thought process is raise it to whatever your baseline is going to be, and then attach it to CPI for whatever region you're in or the state as a whole, whichever works to get it passed, and then be done with it. And then
so once you attach the CPI, you're done with it. You don't have to take up anymore.
Yes,
and if the federal government changes it, we're done, right?
Right. And then in theory, that should have the same buying power over time. So you don't.
Okay.
I mean, I was making $3.25 an hour at a Pizza Hut back in '94. If you attach that to CPI, I would still technically have the same buying power. One medium pizza and some wings.
Those are the days. Okay. Well, have you talked about minimum wage and any of these issues with business owners, leaders in your district in the 73rd?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. Transportation. What
Yes.
are your thoughts on transportation? How do we pay for it? Where's it going in the future? A lot of things are changing. What are your thoughts?
Well, in Western Henrico, we have a fairly large problem with pockets of poverty all throughout the 73rd District and 72nd District. You have folks who can barely afford to own a car, but there's no reliable public transportation out in the West End and out to Short Pump. We need to make sure that GRTC or somebody else that we contract through, i.e., we being the state and the local, have bus routes or transportation routes that can get folks who need to get to jobs to their jobs. The number one goal of public transportation is to get the populace to their jobs, to the store, and home. And we need to make sure that we have a public transportation system that does that. How do you pay for it? You pay for fares. You pay for it by fares. You pay for it from gas tax. You pay for it from and for folks who want to ride it and can't afford, you have what's the word I'm thinking of? Not free tickets, but reduced tickets, and that's how you pay for it. And the federal government usually kicks in a little bit here and there, to help out with extra bus routes or light rail lines or bus rapid transit. Personally, I'm a huge train junkie. Love trains. I'm a big supporter of the bullet train from. It's going to run eventually to Raleigh from Washington, D.C. In my opinion, can't get built fast enough. I've been on 95 enough to know that I really enjoy going to Staples Mill and hopping on the train a lot more than I do watching those people in the parked cars. I'm not going to say I'm not above building another freeway from Richmond to D.C. I'm open to whatever idea will solve the 95 problem. It is a serious issue, the 95 problem of traffic.
Right. Got that. So one of the problems with the higher speed rail or high speed rail or whatever better we're trying to get to is the town of Ashland, which is in Hanover County, which is opposing high speed rail. I mean, how do you in the state legislature overcome those local issues? We've had similar issues in infrastructure projects related to pipelines as well. We get into these problems where it's like, well, the greater good wants to do this, but the local folks don't. How do you bridge that in policy and politics, quite frankly?
The funny thing about Ashland is they build their whole identity on being a train town. And the most recent proposal I've seen is they want to go and take the train and go off into the Buckingham branch, which, if you're familiar, it comes out in Doswell and goes across where King's Dominion is, right in the entryway, and then it goes down to Atlee, and it's a freight railroad. It goes through Chickahominy and down right to downtown. And they said, well, why don't you take the high-speed rail and refurb that? Well, the honest truth is, if you refurb the Buckingham branch and you make it into a high-speed rail corridor, eventually you're going to have the freight railroad. You're going to have everybody who runs trains who want to go on the more efficient, faster lines. And they're eventually going to not go through Ashland anymore. And your whole identity as a train town is going to go away because there won't be any trains going through there. The locals will go away. The Northeast Regional will go away. The Silver Star, the Silver Meteor. If there's an easier way and a faster way to deliver people to Richmond, that will be the way they go, the path of least resistance, the path that they just spent billions of dollars investing because you didn't want to go around a bypass around your town. So my personal opinion about Ashland is I think they're shooting themselves in the foot. I think they build the bypass. If they have to eminent domain folks, they have to eminent domain folks. I think the town will suffer if they don't. How do you sell people on not in my backyard issues? You don't. You really don't. They're going to lose. Somebody's going to lose. And that's unfortunately the way it goes with infrastructure. I live down in Orlando, and there's a east-west freeway called the 408. And I worked with a buddy of mine who his house is under the house he grew up in is now under what is the 408. And his parents were very upset about it, but eminent domain, usually the government will pay you going market rate for your property. And it's unfortunate that that happens, but it is for the greater good. We have a bottleneck for freight rail between here and DC, and it's going to expand one way or the other. It's either going to go down the Buckingham Branch, it's going to go through downtown Ashland and destroy downtown Ashland, or it's going to take a few houses on the outskirts of town. Those
Well,
are
you're very versed in this area. I didn't think I'd run into a candidate who knew the actual train names, and I go out of Staples Mill all the time myself. It was a great answer, by the way. Not that I not necessarily agree with everything, but it was very informative answer. Where are you in the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and pipeline projects, since that sort of has become a political piñata in the Democratic primary for governor?
The thing about the pipelines, if you look at a map of the United States of where our pipelines are, they are everywhere. It is the main mode of transportation that we move natural gas and other commodities. There is hardly a safer way to move large quantities of either petroleum-based products or natural gas or other things like that. Pipelines do leak. Yes, that's the big concern. Is it going to go over somebody's water table and it's going to leak and it'll cause environmental damage? That's true. But you want to know what causes even more environmental damage? 8,000 tractor trailers that are coming through the same exact route. So again, it's a not in my backyard issue, and it's unfortunate. But the pipeline is going to get built. It's either going to get built here or there, and somebody's going to lose. But it's going to get built. The environment, from what I understand, the environmental study has already gone through, or it's pretty close to have gone through, and they're getting ready to break ground. So as far as the environmental folks have to figure out, which is worse, 101 tractor trailers or a pipeline that may or may not leak.
Okay, so you're in favor of the
pipeline, to be honest.
So you're in favor of the pipeline?
If you have to choose between the two, I'd go with the pipeline every day of the week because it costs less energy, it's more efficient, and in the end, it's more environmentally sound.
Okay, very good. Bill Coleman, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Very informative, thought out. So your final pitch and send off trail.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. What was that last part?
Yes, I think so. Just give us a quick summation of your candidacy and your pitch, and then we'll sign off.
So we need to make sure behavioral health and mental health folks are taken care of. Factory jobs of the future are here. We need to make sure that we diversify our economy. We need to make sure that we're providing the types of employees that businesses are looking for, that we encourage technology jobs and make sure people are getting paid a good, decent, livable wage, whatever we determine that is, and make sure that we have the infrastructure to back it up. So.
Okay.
Vote for me in the primary on April 29th.
It's Bill Coleman for delegate.com, right?
Yes, sir.
Bill Coleman for delegate.com. Bill Coleman, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. We wish you the very best of luck, and thanks for offering yourself up for public service.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
And have a good day.
Have a good day.
And we'll get this out.